All right, so for Photoshop Lab 1, it's in Digital Media Photoshop Lab 1. The way the labs are structured is I usually give you an image or images down here, and then some sort of tutorial here. Some people like this. It's kind of hard to see, but you can full screen it if you want or zoom in. You can also download the actual PDF here. So if I clicked on that, it would pop up in a PDF reader and you could actually see it a little better. And what I usually do is just snap this to the side and then have Photoshop open in the left. Anyway, so the tutorial's here, or you can do full screen here. Doesn't really matter. Okay, so the images is here. The image is here. If you right click, do save link as, and then save the PNG file or JPEG file. Usually in your shared drive, I'm just gonna put it on my desktop for now. In your shared folder, it should have your ID number. Hit save, then open up Photoshop, go File, Open, find that file, open it. Now, if you have multiple files, you're going to open multiple files and you have separate tabs up here for each photograph. But for this one, we just have one. All right, so I'm not going to actually go through this like I would if I was actually doing the lab. I'm just going to kind of shortcut all the reading. Usually you can skip this first part. You would start here. You will find the rectangular marquee tool. So this very first lab is talking about rectangular. We're going to talk about selection tools. If I click and hold down in Photoshop, we're going to talk about these two selection tools. Then we're going to talk about these three selection tools. And then we're going to talk about these two. Okay. Selection tools are important in Photoshop. It's when you select the certain pixels and you want to just modify those. So for example, if I wanted to cut out someone's head, I would have to select their head and then cut it out and put it on someone else's body or something like that. In this case, we're going to use the most simple tool, which is the rectangular marquee tool, which gives you a rectangular selection. So to select it, all I have to do is click on the image and then click and drag. And it selects multiple rectangles. However size, I can make it however I want. You can also go up here and feather. We've talked about that when we did other programs, how it fades out. In this case, we're not going to do any of that. There's also style, which if you know that you want it to have a fixed size, pixel size, you can do that and then type it in width and height or a fixed ratio. But we don't usually do that. We just click normal and then click and drag where we want it. In this case, we're going to take this, we're going to select just this red rectangle out of the picture. So I'm going to click and drag. Now, if I made a mistake, I could always just click off and try it again, or do Control D on the keyboard for deselect. Other things that are important about the selection tool are these four kind of buttons up here. This one's a new selection, so every time I click and drag, it removes the old selection and gives me a brand new one. If I click this one, it's add to the current selection. So if I do that, it'll just add to the selection, so I can kind of select multiple things in the picture. This would be subtract from the selection. This doesn't really come into play in this tool but we use it in other tools. Subtract selection would actually, you could kind of subtract pieces out of it. And then this is difference or intersect selection. We don't use that much. Usually it's new or add or subtract. So I'm going to select the red rectangle again, select it. So what we're going to do for this is we're actually going to use what we call the hue saturation layer, which we've already done in the previous lab. To get to the adjustment layer, you'll see it up here on the right-hand side under adjustments. And it is this one, this middle one, first one in the middle. So I click that, it'll give me a box, and I'll be able to drag this slide around, and you see as I drag it, just my selection is getting changed. Okay, so you can change it to whatever color you want, like a yellow. Okay. Now, we're not going to talk about this yet. It actually creates what's called a mask here. You'll see that it's kind of hard to see, but the little thumbnail has a little white rectangle in here. That means only affect what's in the white. Everything in the black will not be affected. So in this case, if I did it again, like say if I wanted to change the color of this yellow one, let me get a better selection, and did hue saturation, you'll see that the thumbnail on the new layer is the rectangle, is the square. I'll change that color too. And that's pretty much it for this lab. It's there's not much to it. Go ahead and change. Well, go ahead and change both of these. Might as well, just to get practice. And then drop the hue saturation layer, and then that's it. To turn it in, go ahead and save it. Hit File, Save As. The key here is not to save it as a Photoshop file. If you save it as a Photoshop file, you will not be able to post it on your website. So click here and always do PNG. You could do JPEG, but I prefer PNGs. So hit PNG and then save it as one rec tool. And then I usually append it with something like done. I do want to save the original, and I want to save the one that I'm completed. So hit one rec tool done. And I'll show you why, because you're going to actually use both those images. Save. All right. So then at the bottom of every single lab, I have the turn in or login button. So if I click on that, it should take me to Weebly website to log in. You'll type in your password. Oops. Or digital media. We'll just go here. Okay. So this was the website you made on Friday. You're going to, let me just maximize this. We're done with Photoshop. You're going to create something that looks like this. So I'm going to actually create a new page just so I can do it from scratch. Standard page. Call this one Photoshop. And I usually take the header off. I usually do no header. All right, and then I go to build, and then I'm going to drag an image in. You're actually going to drag two images for this one. So you're going to have a beginning image and then an ending image. If you click and drag the image to the left or the right, you'll see how it kind of moves over and has that, basically where that blue bar is where the image is going to be placed. All right, so I have one on the left and one on the right. The one on the left I usually is the before image. I click on it, upload, one rec tool. All right, wait for it to actually upload, and then one rec tool done. So I usually have the befores and then the afters. So that pops up there. So then I usually, before I do that, I actually use a title block. I should have done that first. Make sure that when you do it, the blue bar goes all the way across, not just on one of them. So, and then I usually name this something. Up to you what you want to name it. Don't give it a name or anything. Give y'all what name you need to do. And then I put a text box at the bottom. And then I say, you kind of just describe what you did. Rectangular selection tool and a hue saturation layer to change the color of two lines. Okay. So how you get that kind of vocabulary, you can get that in the actual lab itself. Rectangular marquee tool. Anywhere you see bold is kind of like a vocabulary word or something that's important to look at. Hue saturation, image adjustment. So just kind of, it needs to be a sentence or two of just describing what you did. It doesn't have to be super long or anything like that. But you do need a before, you do need an after, and you need some sort of explanation of what you did and a title. So tomorrow I would come in here and put a new title, whatever my lab was, put an image, put another image. There's usually 2, maybe 3 images, and then text. So that would be my new lab. Now, when I'm done, I'm going to go up here and hit publish, and that will allow me to see it, or everyone else to see it. So